on blast.
And we are live. Barely. I'm not doing well today, Q. I'm not gonna lie to you. And you know what? I think the Raptors would have been even more sick than I am right now if they had lost that game in Orlando.
Yes, definitely.
But huge win for the Toronto Raptors.
Thank you, T-Ross.
Thank you, T. Ross, for bricking a trailer load of shots, T. Ross.
Kept us in the game. Third quarter.
But this is the Wrap It Up podcast. My name is Sheldon Alexander. And of course, if you're tuning into this and you know, Danny Green just hit a buzzer beater, essentially. We'll give him a buzzer beater, right? 93-91. The Raptors win in Orlando. This was a pretty ugly game, wasn't it? My name is Sheldon Alexander. I'm here with Q. Q, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Man? We're good, man.
I'll try to, if I have to cough or sneeze, I'll angle it this way so that it's not, directly,
Appreciate it.
Yes, no problem. But yes, this is the Wrap It Up podcast. My name is Sheldon Alexander. Shouts out to the people on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. Send in your questions, your thoughts. When you're going to buy your Danny Green jerseys, let us know. People on Twitter, shouts to you as well. Like and subscribe, or like and retweet is what I meant to say.
Yep.
Bear with me here. I'm sick today, so I'm battling through. But if you are watching this on Instagram or on Twitter, send us your comments, send us your concerns, send us anything you like. We will read your comments and take your questions throughout this entire post-game show as your Toronto Raptors improve to 14-4 on the season. An NBA best still, 14-4. 93-91 win, thanks in part to game winner by Danny Green.
Danny Green.
Let's start there, obviously, right? Now, you got Kawhi Leonard. You got Kyle Lowry who's inbounding the ball.
Yep.
Serge hit some big shots. Maybe even
Resurgence.
Pascal, little spiciness.
Yeah.
I don't know where Danny Green falls in that in that order of who you thought was getting the ball in that situation. But what did you make of that play call at the last play of the game there for Toronto Raptors? A game-winning play.
I like the call. I mean, he said it himself in the post game. He's obviously not the first option. So, you got to make sure Kawhi doesn't kill you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You got to make sure that, Kyle inbounding the ball doesn't get the ball back for a quick shot.
Yeah.
He's known to be they hit those buzzer beaters.
Yeah.
It's tie game. You can't even give up a layup, so you can't get it to Serge or Siakam get. Then here comes Danny Green.
I want to know, and I'm guessing it'll come out in the post game, but if you look back at that final play, before Lowry inbounds it, he turns to the bench and says something to Nick Nurse, who knows what.
Yeah.
And Danny Green says in the post game, he told Kyle, hey, they're going to overplay me. I'm going to try to get the layup. So that was clearly an option that they had discussed just prior to that in the timeout, right? So this Raptors team, I got to give them credit because the easy play was just going to be to call a play, set a couple picks for Kyle or for Kawhi. But to have the confidence to give the ball to Danny Green in that moment, and not for Danny Green's known as a three-point shooter, right? But to not give him the ball basically in his office, let's say, and to trust him with that, that's massive to me. And especially right after, as he acknowledged, he messed up on that defensive play just before, let Fournier blow by him for a dunk. This Raptors team, this was just an interesting win for me. And I said this to you around when Orlando really was making that run in the third quarter.
Right.
This is a game that the old Raptors lose. The Raptors we're familiar with.
Yeah.
The Raptors that, seeing T. Ross and thinking of the Raptors teams of T. Ross and DeMar being their perimeter guys.
Right.
The Raptors lose this game maybe, 7 times out of 10 in the history, but to watch them just grind this out, because this was an ugly game. I don't think Kawhi played that well either. Kyle still kind of, you know what I mean?
He was questionable before the game, so
a grind out win for the Raps. But to you, who kind of stood out? Is it just Danny Green? Danny Green had a big fourth quarter. Is that who stuck out to you the most, or is there someone else? Because Danny Green had 8 points in the fourth quarter, and we talk about it all the time. Danny Green's not always going to be how many points he scores.
Right.
It's about when he's hitting the shots, right? Because
Exactly.
it always seems to be...
And all the other little things that happen during the game.
Yeah. But it always seems to be he's starting a run or ending a run, or ending the other team's run, or hitting a nice starter for the Raps. But he was struggling in this game, but 8 points in the fourth quarter. Danny Green, this Raptors team finding different ways to win against. Don't underestimate the Orlando Magic, and I think that's what a lot of people did.
Yeah, Orlando's played great the last couple of games.
Mm-hmm.
So this was especially first game. I believe it's a back-to-back.
First game of back-to-back for the Raps. Yeah.
There's questions as to whether whether he's going to play today or whether he's going to not play tomorrow or how that was going to work out.
Yeah.
Kyle comes in again questionable
After his ankle in the last game. Yeah.
So this was one of those games where it's, again, like you said, the old Raptors might blow this game.
Yeah.
But it's a new Raptors, so they fought through.
This was a super ugly game, and it was one of those games too that followed. What game was it where the Raps were also up, and then the Dwayne Casey game against the Pistons, right? Where the Raptors were up big in this game. They were up huge, right? After one, they led by 12 points. After one, closed out that quarter on a 22-10 run. Then they were up at halftime. They were up 10 still, but at one point they led by, I want to say, 18. At one point, the Raptors led by. I think someone in the chat will correct me and tell me that I'm wrong, but they led by so much in this game, and then they just kind of, it looked like I don't know if they let their foot off the gas. I don't know what it was, but Orlando just kept coming back and hitting shots, and it was different guys stepping up. Orlando seems to be a team that has pieces. It's just a matter of getting them to fit together, or maybe adding or subtracting one of these guys that don't really fit.
It's the NBA, right? So they have those, like Aaron Gordon, good player.
Mm-hmm.
Vucevic, good player.
Yep, he gets busy.
Fournier, good player. But all of those guys, to me, are like second, third option guys.
Yeah.
They lack the, games on the line.
Yeah.
I'm going to go get that either big stop or hit that big shot. Now, Evan Fournier tied up the game.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful move. But the consistency, right? Like one game he'll have 25, the next game he'll have 8.
And even still in those situations, who are you going to, right? Whereas I know the Raptors, we're talking about this as the Raptors went to Danny Green on the final play of the game. But if you go to what was happening down the stretch, it was Kyle Lowry creating plays and finding Serge Ibaka.
Right.
It is a pretty funny moment because the first shot that Serge took, like in crunch time, Serge Ibaka with another solid game tonight for the Toronto Raptors. He had 14 points, 9 rebounds for the Raps, 4 assists. Yeah. Solid game for Serge. But the funny thing was, in crunch time, Serge got the ball, and Danny Green was open on the swing, and I'm yelling, Serge, swing, swing, swing. And he shoots it, and it goes in. And I just looked at you, and I'm like, I got to just stop getting mad at Serge for shooting. Yeah. And then the next time down, what happened? Kyle to Serge?
Yep.
In rhythm? I was expecting it to go in. Like, how messed up is that?
Yeah.
Serge is doing it. Like, it's consistent right now with Serge Ibaka to the point where someone brought up the rumor. It was one of those online rumors, right, about how the Wizards are imploding. So someone put out their, potential trade packages, and one of the trades that was thrown out was OG, Serge, and a number 1 for Bradley Beal. And automatically my initial instinct was, no, we can't give up Serge. And I'm like, where did this, do you know what I mean? Like, what a difference a year makes, right? Where my initial thought was, I had to, take a step back and be like, well, this is, 18 games of Serge being amazing.
Yeah.
But the reality is this legit? You're hesitating. You're hesitating.
I think so. And I think, he's playing the center position. Mm-hmm. So, again, he's the quickest, most likely the quickest guy in that matchup.
He has a matchup.
Right? He can play outside. Mm-hmm. He can do his thing inside. He does his thing defensively. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest thing is that, last year he was the only Siakam was coming on.
Yeah.
But he was still the only power forward, so he was playing big minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This year, there's not really he doesn't have to be the third guy.
Yeah.
Like that third scoring option and have those big games. If he's
still
having a bad game, okay, Valanciunas picks it up.
Mm-hmm. It's still almost like gravy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you're becoming used to his production, but it's still not necessary, so to speak, on a night-to-night basis because they have so many other versatile pieces, and he's affecting the game in different ways.
Yeah.
He's rebounding consistently.
Yeah, he's back under the basket where he's effective.
Yeah, he's blocking shots, and even if he's not blocking shots, he's still a presence under the basket, which is a thing.
Shots, which we haven't had that.
Yeah.
right? We thought he was going to be that when he came over, but
Yeah.
he was still that same, like, I won't say old Surge, the middle Surge, where he tried to be a stretch forward, that 3-point shooter, and he wasn't, the rest of his game kind of disappeared. The
Yeah.
shot blocking, the rebounding, but he's gone back to that.
The other thing too with Serge to me is just the mindset when you're watching him on the offensive end. You would see parts where he gets the ball at the elbow and he'll up fake and dribble in to get a closer shot to shoot
Right.
it in the paint. Whereas before, forget about elbow jumpers. He was settling for the long twos.
Yep.
Right? He was just settling, and that was his automatic instinct. Whereas this has to be mindset from the coaching staff and buy-in from Serge at the
Right.
same time that, listen, in the paint, you can dominate and put in gangster work every single night when you're just shooting layups, right? And I feel like when it's in the flow of the offense, meaning him and Kyle, the two-man game is going, that's kind of teetered off a little bit, like just the consistency of having both JV and Serge going at the same time.
Right.
But you still saw it tonight where Serge, he's in the paint and he's making all these shots. And then that just makes him, it appears anyways, that it makes him that much more confident when he's shooting his jumper.
Right.
It's Serge Ibaka, it's crazy to watch. But another thing I want to big up too is the fact that the bench. Now I know you look at the numbers and the numbers aren't really going to stand out to you, anyone's numbers off the bench in this
Anyone's numbers in the game, really. I mean,
It's
what was
true.
it? The,
Yeah,
what was
it's
the
true.
leading score? 18.
Kawhi had 18, yeah.
So it was a team effort. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, but in the bench gave the Raptors solid minutes, and they were the ones that extended that big lead
Yeah.
in the second quarter, right? And then it was the starters that kind of squandered it and then gave up the lead in the
Right.
third quarter. And then the bench kind of in the second stint of the bench, meaning the second half of the third quarter and the fourth,
Yeah.
the bench maintained. The bench did a really good job of playing defense and keeping the Raps, keeping the game close, right? And
DeLon hit some big shots.
for sure. And the thing we got to give credit to is Lorenzo Brown. Lorenzo Brown, I know he had 8 points. I think they were all in the first half, but he was the second time around, he becomes a threat because he hit those 2 early threes.
Right.
And we talked about the Bulls game, and a lot of people write off the Bulls game thinking that it doesn't mean anything and it's just the Bulls and it's a 30-point blowout and who cares?
Right.
But what happened in that game? Guys like Lorenzo Brown, Malachi Richardson, they played like the whole fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Lorenzo Brown had 10 points in that game, I'm pretty sure. And so what happens then? He gains a little more confidence,
Confidence.
right? And then
we
see him
'cause
tonight.
I think as fans, we see the Bulls, we see the record, we see, and we go, this is a college team.
Yeah.
But you got to realize that at that end of the bench, Malachi and Lorenzo Brown, that's who they're going to be playing against.
Yeah.
So when you see that they are succeeding in that matchup, it's extra depth.
Yeah.
Extra depth.
Because we forget sometimes, right? Because especially in this era where we crush people, it's so easy for everyone to crush someone on social media, right?
Right.
And say like, oh, John Wall sucks or something. Like,
Right.
obviously, John Wall's a really, really good player.
course.
So I say that to say this. These guys that have put in work in 905, it's the NBA. All these guys can play. It then becomes a matter of confidence and your mentality. So having those guys get those minutes and do so well, and then in a game like this when you need them,
Yeah.
because you needed to play that extra wing guy, and it ended up being Lorenzo Brown,
Right.
he gives you solid minutes. He knocks down those early threes, and then now in the second half when he's playing, hey, Orlando can't sag off of him.
Exactly.
He's confident to take that shot, and that matters because it's buying you minutes because you know you need to get Lowry some rest.
Exactly.
You know you need to get Kawhi some rest.
And I think that's the thing, right? So you said, Chicago, and then, Orlando's an improved team, but it's still Orlando.
Yeah. And then
So
tomorrow.
Tomorrow's at Atlanta.
The Hawks,
Right. So when you see that Lorenzo Brown can come into those games, not only does it give him confidence, but I think it gives Nick Nurse confidence to be
Yeah.
like, okay, maybe Kyle needs a break today.
Yeah.
Maybe Van Fleet can't play, doesn't play as much minutes.
For sure.
We can buy these guys minutes with Lorenzo Brown,
Mm-hmm.
which keeps them fresh for when we really need them.
And
in
as
the
you say,
games and
it
playoffs.
also gives the other guys on the team confidence in those guys when they're playing. Right? Kyle, the confidence to, hey, I'm going to swing the ball to Lorenzo in the corner, open for a three, right? And I know people are still ragging on Freddie, thinking that, Freddie's numbers aren't there. But I think the big thing with Fred VanVleet, and even if you go back to last year, because I said this last year, it's not like his numbers are what made him be a finalist for sixth man of the year,
Yeah.
right? It was a command of the game, right? The way that he was controlling tempo and giving the team a spark. And I think he did that tonight in this game. Him and DeLon played so much better, I thought, just in terms of controlling the game, getting people shots. Were the shots always falling? No. But make or miss league sometimes. You're going to miss shots. It's not a big deal. I
Right.
thought the bench played a really big part in this game of just, containing the Magic, getting the Raptors out to that big lead as mentioned, but also in the second half, again, solid defensive stops. And I'm going to give credit to Nick Nurse. I want to get your take on just what Nick Nurse has done so far this season, but we're seeing little things like how many coaches drop a play or have that final play go to Danny Green?
Right.
How many coaches figure out, okay, well, my bench mob is kind of struggling, so what does he do? I'm going to shift my rotation a little bit, have Pascal play a lot more minutes with the bench mob,
Right.
like last year,
Okay.
have that cook. And then he had that when the Raptors made that run in the first half, it was a lineup that had Freddie, DeLon, Lorenzo, and JV, 4 bench guys, and then he just rotated through one starter, whether it was Danny Green, whether it was Kawhi, whether it was Kyle, whether it's Pascal, and that was the thing to me that really blew up this game. And we're starting to see things from Nick Nurse that I think we got to give him a lot of credit for, no?
Definitely. He said he was going to try a plethora of lineups, and he did that. I mean, at one point it was Fred, DeLon,
Yeah, Lorenzo.
Lorenzo. So that's 3 point guards, right? 3 backup point guards on the court at the same time.
Yeah.
With Danny Green, who
Yeah.
I guess essentially I
Is
know
he
it's
four?
positionless
Yeah,
basketball
yeah, yeah.
now, but he's your 4
Yeah.
and
JV.
JV. Like, who would ever have thought you would ever have that lineup on the floor,
Yeah.
right?
And they gave
I
him good
couldn't even
minutes.
think of a scenario where you would you
Yeah.
would think that's the lineup I'm going to go. But he's trying it. He has everybody confidence because they were in the game, and it wasn't like it was a blowout game. We just try something.
Yeah.
It was they were in the heat of it.
Yeah.
And that's the lineup he went with, right? And they didn't. They kept the game close,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which bought Kyle and Kawhi those extra 2-3 minutes of rest for that end of the fourth. So you got to give him credit. I mean,
To back up your point here, not to cut you off, but to back up your point, someone here on Instagram brings up a good point to back you up here. Nurse also did a good job putting JV and Surge together at the right time.
Yep.
Right? Because you were saying there was a point there late in the game where they had the matchups where they had 2 bigs in there. I think it was Mo Bamba and Vucevic, right? And the Raps were getting beat on the boards.
Yeah.
And this was probably the second time this year that I've seen.
And Aaron Gordon,
And Aaron
Jonathan
Gordon,
Isaac. So they
They
Aaron
had-
Gordon's the shortest one out,
They were supersized.
right? Shortest
Yeah.
big man out there, and he's 6'8".
Yeah.
Raptors
They-
didn't have, other than JV, didn't have anybody there. So,
And I think it was the second time I've seen so far. Again, one of our regulars will correct me here, but I'm pretty sure it was like the second time this season we've seen JV and Surge on the court at the same time. And the only other time was because of foul trouble
Right.
against Boston. So, again, making adjustments on the fly, being able to adjust, and I think that's an adjustment that's reactive,
Yeah.
but for the most part, which is a thing that I know you used to get on Casey for, Nick Nurse was proactive in terms of this is what we're going to do.
exactly.
You adjust,
Exactly.
right? And,
that-
how
that's what
refreshing
your-
is that?
I
to
think
see?
that's what your coach has to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if things aren't working out, and for some reason the game's not going right, and whatever the matchups aren't working in your favor, then of course you make adjustments
Yeah.
and you react to that.
Yeah.
But I love seeing where you make the other team react to what you do.
Yes, exactly. No, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. And one thing too, I give a lot of credit for because I like the looks of what Nick Nurse is doing because sometimes when the Raptors' offense is lacking energy, he'll put in the extra point guard for Kyle or for Fred in that instance to get them off the ball because those guys you rely on to score as well. And sometimes it's a little easier if they're off the ball. It gives someone else a chance to drive and kick because those guys can knock down shots, right? And there was a moment early on, and I don't mean to make this a Nick Nurse love fest because maybe that's just what it turns into because this was kind of a grind out game.
Right.
But there was a moment there when Orlando took the lead and they were up 2. Raps called timeout. They come out of a timeout. What happens? They drop a set play. Kyle Lowry, set play 3, knocks that down. Those are the little things that, I mean, especially in a 2-point game,
Exactly.
that like wins you the game. That's your coach or whatever's going on in your huddle, because they mentioned in the broadcast, we've seen different shots of it. Kyle Lowry seems to be taking charge
Yep.
in a lot of Raps timeouts as well. But those little plays mean everything in these instances where it's a 1 point game, it's a 2 point game. And I apologize because this is becoming a blur, which games are which. And my brain is kind of moving slow today. As I mentioned, I'm under the weather. But there was a moment where last game where Kyle Lowry, was it last game or the Boston game, where Kyle Lowry was basically, it was a Boston game, where Kyle Lowry's the one diagramming the play and drawing it up really late in the game. And you see that, and it's one of those things where you got to look at it as he is still finding ways to lead this team, even though his numbers aren't what they were to start the season.
Right.
He's still doing the other Kyle Lowry things, but I also wonder if, do you think he's trying to empower or give more of the playmaking to Danny Green and Kawhi? Like he's trying to force feed them into it more so that they find a level of comfort?
Yeah, I think you mentioned this during the game where it might just have been a bad game, but Kawhi just doesn't seem like he's in the flow
Tonight he didn't
of
have it.
everything
I don't think
going
he had
on.
it tonight, yeah.
Where he needs to be on the court at certain times.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Kawhi. You're not gonna really notice it but
He's still going to get busy regardless.
when you're watching basketball, you really take in the little things.
Yeah.
You notice when certain plays are called, and when there's a guy who's kind of off to the side and not in the motion, that means he doesn't know the play usually. Right?
Yes. There were plays, you're totally right, and thank you for reminding me of that, because I called it out while it was happening. You could see where, and hey, when we make it to the big time and we have B-roll to run plays and stuff.
Yeah.
But there was a moment where they had the ball at the top of the key, and JV was kind of trying to point to Kawhi where to go,
Right.
and you could just tell he didn't know the play.
Yeah.
And again, that's not a knock, and it's something he's been upfront about. He mentioned in one of the recent post games, right? Like he's still trying to figure out all the plays, and they're still trying to figure out how to play with him. So this is still a learning process that I feel like a lot of people, we gotta remind ourselves as we watch these Raptor games, and a lot of fans will live and die by the result of every game, right? But you got to remind that this is a process, right? They're still figuring this out. And for you to win a game where, okay, Kyle Lowry goes 3 for 9, he only had 9 points in this game. Kawhi was 8 of 16, but only had 18 points. 18 points on 16 shots. I would crush DeMar for that, right? Do you know what I mean? I know he shot 50%, but 18 points on 16 shots is not anything to write home about, right? So you think those are your two best players? That's where the numbers go? Right? You grind out a victory like that? You take that if you're the Raptors. And the other key part to this, minutes. Kawhi only played 30 minutes tonight.
Yeah.
Kyle only played 32 minutes tonight. That's big on the front end of the back-to-back, where those guys were upwards of 40. So a lot of pluses to take away from this game. And, no matter which way you go, the other thing I kept bringing up a lot was Terrence Ross. He was taking some of the most ridiculous shots. He was 2 of 10 in this game for 4 points. I'm not going to get into it because as much as I love the TMZ stuff, I'm not going to bring that up and talk about it. But I'll just advise you to go look at BSO on that Twitter and just read that. If you're into that sort of thing, it's kind of funny. But anyways, Terrence Ross, every time he was just taking MJ fadeaway threes in the fourth quarter, and you're just bro, chill out. What are you doing?
Especially at a time where
This is a crunch time.
Yeah, Aaron Gordon was winning his matchups.
Yeah.
Fournier was hot at a point, and then
Yeah.
T. Ross comes in, and just brick after brick after brick, and it was just thank you.
Fournier had 27 points in this game.
Yeah.
Fournier was balling. He played nice in this game. And you're right. They kind of took turns between him and Gordon. And then every once in a while, T. Ross would just shoot this terrible three.
Yeah.
It's what are you doing? It was just odd. And you think back to the trade, right? Because obviously these teams are going to be linked because it was T. Ross and the number 1 pick for Serge. Was that it? Or was there something else involved in that deal as well? But, either way, especially with how Serge is playing now, are we biased by that? But I guess T. Ross never really played that good in Orlando ever. So, right?
Exactly.
You think back to that deal, and I wonder, it's so weird to think of these Raptors teams, man, because I keep thinking of the T. Ross, DeMar, like
Jose Calderon,
it's just so weird to watch a team like this where you
Amir
have
Johnson.
they just have grown-ups,
Yeah.
right? They had multiple grown-ups on the team that also contribute. Because they might have had and what mean by that is during this Raptors run of, whatever it's been the last 5 years, is it?
Yeah.
5 years, 6 years, 5 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Whatever it's been of this era of the Raptors, the Lowry DeRozan era. They never really had vets that contributed. They might have had a Chuck Hayes at the end of the bench or something like that,
Yeah.
but they never had, like, do you know what I mean? And to have a grown up, and that's what I call Danny Green and Kawhi.
Exactly. And other than, Kyle and DeMar. Like,
Yes,
somebody
everything
else.
was on them.
Yeah.
Everything was on them, right? Like if Kyle and DeMar weren't scoring that last second shot, they were losing for sure.
Right.
Whereas the balls to go to Danny Green, the balls to like even drop that play, the balls for Kyle Lowry to be like, yeah, we'll pass it to Danny Green. Kawhi Leonard to be the man and be like totally fine with, like it's good to see. It's fun to see a grown-up team like the Toronto Raptors win games that they probably shouldn't win. I don't know. It's a weird thing right now, but I think, and I'm the one that says we shouldn't be playing results, right? Like it's a process, but I'm just impressed with how they're able to get through these games.
Right. And I think that's kind of what the regular season is, right? It's you're gonna have games like this where things ain't going right, or where you're up big and a team's gonna make a run, and like this is all like the whole season to me is all about playoffs.
Yeah,
Right?
Definitely.
Whether you're the first seed, win 60 games, second seed, third seed, doesn't really matter, as long as things are right come April.
Exactly.
And to see again, to see that you can put a Lorenzo Brown in and give him small minutes, right? But it's
enough,
not.
yeah.
But it doesn't hurt the team,
Exactly.
right?
It's big.
To try these different combinations to see what works. That's all. Like the regular season right now is an experiment for Nick Nurse to see what's going to work for me going forward.
Definitely.
Win, lose, draw, doesn't matter. Obviously, the Raptors are a playoff team,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If not the best team in the East.
I mean, Jimmy
Right.
Butler's been looking pretty good so far.
That's for another,
Can't wait for that game. That's for another podcast.
That's
so.
for another show. But yeah. So to be able to, like you said, the Raptors of old probably lose this game. To see that they could fight through this game with different lineups, different people contributing, shows the growth of the team.
Yeah. And again, much more like this had all the feels of that Detroit game, right? Up big, probably on cruise control. The other team starts playing, starts making a comeback, and then the Raptors tried to flick on the switch again at the end, and they couldn't do it, right? They end up losing at the buzzer. Fortune switch, right? And I keep saying the
I
thing
think
is
that
about
was that was just the rap gods. I mean, the
basketball
basketball
gods
gods
giving
just-
Casey-
just giving Casey the
yeah, and I'm okay with that. I'm not mad
That's
at
all
that.
that was.
But I keep saying, right, more so than the wins and losses, as you said, right? It's a process and watching how things go down because, as much as Kawhi played bad here, I'm still banking off the fact that, that game in Boston, hostile crowd, he did work, right? And that's what I want to see because, as you said, come playoff time, no excuses. It's just work, right? Like you need to cook every single night, and that's just all it is. So until then, as you said, fill out who can play, find out who your guys are, who are your guys off the bench, how can we use these guys? How did these guys all play together? One of the other interesting things, the Raptors had a lot of turnovers, and there were a lot of weird plays where guys were driving and just throwing it to the corner, but there was no one there.
Because the guy vacated the corner.
Yes, but
Right.
they're supposed to be in the corner. Like that's how their offense is structured, right?
Exactly.
Remember going back to all the Nick Nurse talk about how they trained and how they practice and how they would play in terms of I think corner threes are worth 4 points or something like that, right? In the little games that the scrimmages they would have in practice, it was like long twos or shots that aren't in the key or aren't a 3-pointer,
Right.
are basically worth negative points. And the goal is to have you shoot layups, dunks, or 3-pointers. But corner threes are worth more. So you could see people driving and passing it to that corner, but there's no one there.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can see the offense is still kind of trying to find its way.
And again, you're gonna have that when you're playing
Different
5-man
lineups.
sets,
Yes.
different lineups,
Yeah.
trying to see who kind of meshes together. So you're gonna have those.
Yeah.
But to be able, I think it's a luxury to be able to experiment with these things and still come out with a W.
Exactly. No, totally agree. Again, for those joining us, Toronto Raptors are winners as not Kawhi Leonard, not Kyle Lowry hit the shot at the buzzer, but Danny Green with the game winner, a set play out of a timeout. Danny Green for the game-winning shot.
The throw in Danny Green.
The throw in the trade, Danny Green, yes. Raptors win 93-91 in Orlando on the front end of a back-to-back as they will now head to Atlanta. I don't know yet. Let's see if any post-game sound is out to find out if Nurse has mentioned if Kawhi's going to play tomorrow night or not. But big win for the Toronto Raptors, I think. It was an ugly game, a grinded-out game. These are the games where, it's kind of the ugly part of the regular season, right? Because it's like, okay, you're in Orlando. Like, it's easy to get up for the Boston games.
Exactly.
Right? But now you're talking about, a back-to-back Orlando and Atlanta. They were at like Disneyland or Disney World, whichever one's there. I don't know. I don't have kids. Which one's there? I don't know. Which one's in Orlando?
World.
Magic City? I don't
Disney
know
World.
what it is. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just one of those things where to watch the Raptors grind out that game in a game that they normally probably lose.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you got to think, right? Orlando's
man.
coming off some big wins. They got the current number one seed in the East
Yeah,
showing up,
they're ready.
right? Orlando
Was what, 7-2 in their last 9, I'm pretty sure. Like that's what I'm saying. A lot of people, you just look at the team and you're thinking, oh, it's Orlando, this should be an easy win. It's like, no. These guys were playing well. Like, they started off slow, but they've been reeling off a pretty solid run as of late.
I mean, Orlando's a playoff team right now. They're 9 and 8.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
This could be a potential first round matchup. Who knows, right?
they just beat the Lakers. Orlando beat LeBron and the Lakers.
Gave them the business. Like, that game wasn't close.
No, it was not.
I think I just sniffled really terribly into the mic. Apologies, people. I'm sorry. But it's one of those things where
They beat Philly last week.
yeah, it's a solid team. Clifford is a good coach too, right? And that's the thing. They just need to figure out, sub in a couple pieces here and there, figure out who's who, who really fits with who. Because
I feel like they're like Boston or Boston before the Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen got there, or Philly
a couple pieces away.
or Philly before Embiid, right? Where
they're like a good trade away.
yeah,
Yeah.
like they're just stockpiling assets, right? Doesn't matter position they might have. They come into the season with 3 centers and 4 power forwards.
And correct me if I'm wrong. This is where the Raps assistant GM went, right? Weltman.
Yes.
Weltman's there now.
Yep.
So I mean, at some point, you figure he's gonna try to clean some things up because there's a lot of random draft picks that didn't really make sense.
Yeah.
There's a
You
lot
had-
of
you had Vucevic and Biombo, and you still draft.
and they still traded for Serge.
Right. Yeah. And you right or,
Or
or
they
you
still
still
signed Serge,
you
so-
still draft Mo Bamba. So now you go in after the draft, and that was a high pick, and you draft another like a third center after you already have I believe it's $30-some-odd million wrapped up, right? And then you move Biombo. Like they're just making these small moves
That make no
but they're
sense.
just kind of asset gathering for the time when it's
when it's time to make your trade to get Kawhi Leonard.
exactly basically yeah
Right? Oh, so good. This Raptors team, man. This Raptors team. It's about depth again. People are starting to. I can see Raptors fans. I try to get ahead of what the Raptors fans, tendencies will be because I see the mob waiting to get at Kyle Lowry. It's like, yo, chill, man. He's got to pace himself through this season. This is why the Toronto Raptors have to This is why their bench matters. This is why Fred matters. This is why DeLon matters because you got to pace your way through Kyle Lowry during the regular season because he's not gonna put up those crazy numbers for the entire season and then have enough in the tank for the playoffs.
Of course.
It's not a thing. So chill out, relax, enjoy the ride, take the positives where you can from what's going on with this Raptors team right now because
See the big picture.
yes, see the big pictures. They got to win. They're in first place. I'm going to keep pointing out the fact that the Leafs and Raptors are in first place in their respective leagues because what? There's kids right now that are like little kids that just think like it's normal for the Raptors to be good.
Exactly. And the Leafs.
Right?
This is the way it's supposed to be. They don't.
Meanwhile-
They don't know the troubles we've seen.
Meanwhile, they don't know about Bargnani. They
They
don't know
have
about
no
Jason
idea.
Blake.
No,
right?
they don't
Like,
know.
what's going on? Oh, man. So good. Raptors continue to push. Another big win again. Raptors head to Atlanta for a big game Wednesday night, second night of a back-to-back. The expectation is, I mean, because he's rested every time since. I've been trying to kill time to see if someone has caught up and found out from Nick Nurse if what's his name?
Kawhi.
If Kawhi Leonard's gonna play. I'm like trying to type something into Twitter and talk at the same time, and it's not working. But yeah, so
I don't expect to see him.
I don't, and why? To me, it's the same thing with the who they just beat on Saturday, the Bulls.
Bulls, yeah.
Why play Kawhi Leonard? Like that's a waste of time. Like you're gonna make Kawhi Leonard guard Vince Carter.
I think you might be lucky to see Kyle.
That's where I want to go because here's the thing: you need to start resting Kyle Lowry certain games, right? And maybe that's a trade-off. Maybe it's like, okay, Kawhi, you play this back-to-back. We're going to rest Kyle.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. Because I don't think you rest them both. Because that might be pushing it, right? Like we're not the Spurs.
Yeah.
Right? Right? We're not the Spurs. They're not that old. But
Yeah.
you got to start taking it easy on Kyle Lowry a little. And especially, going back to your point, maybe that's why you're really pushing Lorenzo Brown, right? Because you know at some point, you're going to want to rest Kyle Lowry on the second night of back-to-backs, and then Lorenzo Brown has to play.
Right.
So, hey, Raptors fans, enjoy. First, I mean, we're entertained for an ugly game, for a grinded-out game. You get a win at the end. Got to take that. Raptors win 93-91 to improve to 14-4. Again, and sit atop the entire NBA.
Yeah.
To wrap up the week, I think they're at home to Washington on Friday.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, Washington, what are they doing? Washington came back and won that game?
Yeah.
Wow. Washington was getting blown out. I just checked the box score. Washington ended up winning 125-118 against the Clippers, but still, with all the turmoil going on there, who knows who's on that team by the
Yeah,
time
that's
Raptors
the
play
rumor,
them.
right? Is who knows exactly who might be seeing a whole different team on Friday. But
Who knows? And either way, they could get the business to whoever's
Yeah,
in those
don't
uniforms.
matter.
The way the Raptors are playing right now.
we
But,
also got to make sure that let's mention Vince for a minute.
Okay.
Because we got Vince Carter coming in tomorrow,
Yes.
who is 13 points shy of 25,000 points.
Okay. Oh, so he's going to do it against the
So
Raptors?
is he going to do that against the Raptors?
Trash. I don't know, man. Yo, speaking of that, because my new wave that I want to emphasize now to people who are basketball fans that I don't feel actually know basketball, but also to the young bucks that are growing up in this era where it's just all threes and Steph Curry's the best player ever.
Yeah.
Listen, the stat that they threw out, that Steve Clifford threw out about Kawhi Leonard, that Kawhi Leonard has more steals in his career than personal fouls, I was like, that's crazy. That is actually crazy. So I bring that up just to say, we talk about Vince Carter, and yes, Vince Carter is going to be in the Hall of Fame. Vince Carter is a great player. Raptors are going to retire his jersey. Cool. But when we say there's levels to this shit, right, and there's a reason why one guy's a finals MVP, yes, he played on the Spurs, yes, all that stuff too, but there's two ends of the floor in the game. So all this talk about Steph Curry this, Steph Curry that, and Draymond's a bum, it's like, listen, there's two sides of the court. Need to remind people that. We tend to forget that in this age because, taking charges or defensive rotations or rebounds don't make it to Instagram, right?
Exactly.
That's not on Instagram. But two sides of the floor. When we talk about the effect that Kawhi Leonard has, yes, he didn't have a good shooting night, but he still did his solid thing on defense, played defense well, and that's why we got him.
Yep.
This is why he's here. Thank you for being here with me, Q, and putting up with my coughing into the mic. I don't know, I think I snorted into the mic at one point. I hope I didn't get you sick, but
It's a long
feel free.
season, brother. It's a long season.
It's a long season, right? And we will make it through. Thank you for joining me here. All the people on Instagram. I see people here. I got to say shout out to some people here because I see some people saying hi. Ange, oh, wow. Ange, haven't seen you forever. How you doing? Pat, I see
she
you.
misses your face.
Tell Sawyer I said what's up, too. I haven't seen Sawyer forever. Someone named, I can't read that name out loud, right? I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to let that one go.
Yeah.
But what's up, Instagram? I see you. Thanks for joining us and asking questions. All the people that are on Twitter as well, thanks. That's where the live stream is. That's where you don't have to just look at my ugly face. You can also see whoever I'm with. And today it was Q. Q, thanks for joining me, man. Where can people catch up with you on socials and find some dope toques because it is wintertime?
It is. And it's cold. And it's going to get colder. So, yeah, we got Tukes coming. They are coming slowly, but they're coming.
Mm-hmm.
Check us out at ddscaps.com and at ddscaps on all social media platforms. My personal one is at simply just Q. That's simply _just _Q. I got it out this time. It's a little complicated. might have to change that. But yeah, man. Yeah,
It's like DDSQ or Q at DDS or something like that.
We'll work it.
But yes, people, find ddscaps.com.
ddscaps.com.
Get familiar, kids. Get familiar. ddscaps.com. And thanks again for coming through, Q. Really appreciate it. And as always, my name is Sheldon Alexander. You can find this podcast live after each and every Raptor game. Come join us on the feed on Twitter at Shell Alexander. Join the chat group. Ask questions. We love to interact with the fans as we go along talking Raptors basketball, especially after cool wins like this where Danny Green's hitting game winners. So appreciate that. Also on Instagram, just another platform to get questions, interact with people as they watch. And of course, if you're not listening to this live, we flip it. It becomes a podcast for your morning commute or the next day at work. You can find the podcast at... No, what's a podcast? On Blast Podcast. Wow. I need to end this soon, right? I'm really that sick. On Blast Podcast, on iTunes, on SoundCloud, on Google Play, and on YouTube. Shout out to the people on YouTube. The YouTube community is holding us down. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. And to all the people watching at work on YouTube, I'm still not stitching on you, but I appreciate it as well. Until next time, my name is Sheldon Alexander, and as a wise man once said, I used to pray for times like this to rhyme like this. This is the Wrap It Up on Blast Raps post-game show. As always, unpolished and unapologetic. Until next time, well, next time's tomorrow, so I'll probably still be sick, but see ya.
On blast.